Banks, and you're watching From Moment to Movement, a platform for Black voices to be heard, unfiltered and uncensored. Hello, everyone. I'm Tamara Banks, and welcome back to this edition of From Moment to Movement. I'm so glad to have you here. I am really just thrilled and honored to have the amazing Bonita Hampton Smith in the house with me, who stopped by here today. She is an author and just finished writing this really incredible book that everyone has got to go out and get. It's called Dear White Woman, Dear Black Woman. And it's a compilation of letters, and the title doesn't even do it justice to the extent of how deep the story goes. These letters and this connection that you're making between Black women and white women. And one of the things, Bonita, I have to say, you reminded me of this quote on the back of your book by Coretta Scott King. She said, "Women, if the soul of a nation is to be saved, I believe that you must become its soul." That is so true now and always have been. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's just a pleasure. I've enjoyed our conversations. I look forward to diving in with you.
Me too. This is really a great book, and I like the concept of dear white woman writing to a Black woman and vice versa. You and I share something in common. The reason I started this show with PBS a couple of years ago was this notion that we're in this moment,
Yeah.
and we have to create a movement. And the tipping point was the murder of George Floyd, captured on camera, went viral all around the world. And in the middle of COVID, tell me, how did that situation, those situations, that moment in time inspire you to write this book?
Yeah, as I shared in the forward, it was literally the first time I witnessed someone die and be brutally murdered. Um, I shared how I watched my father monitor count down his life. That was different. I was preparing myself to say goodbye to my father. George Floyd was forced upon us. We didn't ask for it, but we all watched it. And I grappled with that for a long time. There were times when I would sit in my anger, my fear, my frustrations, and the reality of what we were dealt with. Looking at the relationship of Black people with police officers and just the polarization during COVID, and there was so much going on. And I just sat in that. And I cannot say that this book came to me like I'm some genius. I was actually in meditation one day, deciding that, I want to move forward in a space of love and healing. I knew within my own self I wanted to move forward in that. And this idea came to me as an inspiration. I was inspired to do it. And it was like laid out in my mind, having white women to write letters to Black women and Black women to write letters to white women with the goal of starting a conversation of healing. And so it literally came to me. And the quote of Mrs. King deeply resonates with me. Being the CEO of the King Center, I've studied some of her work, Dr. King's work. And so that quote really is something that's really near to my heart, dear to my heart, and it resonates with me. Women, if the soul of the nation is to be saved, I believe you must become its soul. And I believe this is a pathway of getting there.
I want to talk more about the healing piece of it. In the connection of women, George Floyd was calling out to his mom, right? Not that dads don't matter, not that fathers aren't in the picture. I'm just saying that we hold a unique space. And so I think what I'm getting from the book is that since women hold a unique space, how can Black and white women, is the goal to come together and forge an alliance? Is the goal to just hear each other? What is the intention, the outcome, or do you have?
Yeah. So I think it's all inclusive of what you said, but I do believe that in order to get to healing, in order to get to a space where we can become allies, that we have to deal with everything that's kept us apart and separated. And so the goal here is to start storytelling so we can discover each other, understand each other, and get an understanding of each other so that we can move forward with healing. I do not believe that we can begin to solve any problems unless we're healed. We need to go in with our healed self and not our trauma selves. And so the goal is for us to dismantle those things. And I believe it can start with storytelling. I believe in the power of storytelling. You and I have just sat here for an hour prior to getting ready for this conversation, and we got to know each other through storytelling and just honest dialogue. And it brings a bond, and from there you can build. You know?
And I wonder if the writing of the letter was kind of a safe space, because even if we have, as Black women, we have white friends, and white women have some Black friends, it's not always comfortable or safe to have these conversations. And
Right.
one letter that struck me, you know, I'm tired of being told that have such resilience. That almost makes it sound like we're supposed to be super women, and that we don't really have the luxury of healing, the luxury of being sad, the luxury of not being perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the goal. When you sit down to write a letter and you commune with your inner self and your soul, if you're courageous enough to tell the truth, my goal was to make sure this was a safe space, and we told them when we didn't censor the letters, we didn't edit the letters. We wanted you to just pour your heart out on the paper or you're on the computer, however you're writing, crafting your letter. But if you're courageous enough to tell the truth and just let it out to the atmosphere, I believe there's space for truth, and I believe you can build on truth. I always tell people truth gives room to God to just show out.
Amen.
So if you give an authentic, truthful space, I believe it's conducive to healing and conducive to creating a pathway forward for all of us.
I noticed in at least one of the letters I wrote, a woman spoke to that and said, "Believe me when I tell you that this is what I'm followed in stores, or I'm called out of my name." And I think maybe it's because white women think that they're responsible, or they feel ashamed that their ancestors or people that look like them would even say this, but that oftentimes we're not believed.
Yeah, we're not believed, and sometimes people just don't know. There are things that my white sisters in this book felt and conveyed that I didn't know. There are things that my black sisters shared that I simply just did not know. But when you know, you're responsible for that information. One of the things that I really want to be clear with every white woman that wrote a letter, that shame and guilt are not healthy emotions. So the goal is, if you're ashamed, you can go ahead and embrace that and acknowledge it. If you feel guilty, embrace it and acknowledge it, but don't sit in it because it doesn't serve you well. The goal is to get to a place of responsibility. So how do I get out of my emotions and become responsible? And that's the dialogue that we need to create, to own our responsible role in this pathway forward for humanity. That's the dialogue.
Tell me a little bit about your support team, your team really that helped you build this, because you're very generous with the accolades and support that you return to your friends and colleagues that helped you put this together.
Absolutely. So when I got the vision, I knew that this was so much bigger than me. And so I invited women in that I know, women that care about this kind of work. So Jen, founder of Inclusive, she is responsible for creating dinners and conversations across the nation. Dr. Vanetta West, she's building a school in Liberia, so she cares about this work. In fact, some of the proceeds from the project is going to her school. Dr. Angela Oxford, who at the time she was teaching at a university in Arkansas, and Monique Rashad, I'm sorry, Monique, who's a teacher. So all of them were invested in this work. Monique is just incredible. Jen has been just totally, totally incredible. So they're just beautiful women, and they share their circles and invited them into the project. So I'm just immensely grateful to both of them, all of them.
It really took a village and a whole team to really make this come
Well,
together.
I knew it was bigger than me. When, like I said, God inspired me to do this project, and you're going to invite women in. I can't invite everyone who thinks like me, everyone in my circle. I knew that I needed to just sit down and think about, now, who cares about this work? Because it matters that you care about the work. It matters that healing is part of your nature. It matters that you are an inclusive being because if the work is not authentic, then it will, it will not do what it's meant to do. I believe in being clear in your intentionality, and so I was intentional about inviting certain living on this journey.
And as you mentioned earlier, when we were talking, if we're focused on their plan, they, whoever they is, but let's say Project 2025,
Mm-hmm.
should we come up with our own plan rather than trying to address something that gives it more juice and more energy and more
Yeah.
validity?
Well, I'm always looking at what you're for. There is more energy in what you're for as opposed to getting up every day thinking about what I'm against. If I get up and decide what I'm living for, setting forth my intentionality, if I am for peace, then the outcome of me being for peace is that war will be eliminated. If I'm for children living well and thriving, the outcome will mean that there will be no poverty because I'm seeking and I'm for something. If I'm for love and other centeredness and including people, then guess what? Racism is a byproduct and an outcome that will not exist because I'm for something. It's so much easier to channel your energy on working for something than against something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it was Mother Teresa who said, you know, I won't go to a anti-war rally, but call me when we have a pro-peace rally. She wanted me to really be a part of it, just
Yeah.
saying a positive piece of it. So the idea of the show is to give people takeaways on what to do from capture this moment, create a movement. You have some intentional action items in the book. Can you give us some of those so we can feel like people are empowered after watching?
Yeah, so the goal for Dear White Woman, like I said, is to create a space for healing. And we intentionally included questions for Black women to sit and have moments to reflect and ask questions that are conducive to you moving and possibly changing your perspective. And so we have questions designed for white women, Black women, and group discussions, or you can call them book club questions. So we want people to not only get this book, but spend some time with yourself. And I do what I call thought audits. So at night, I examine my thought life and I ask myself, Bonita, what thoughts did you think today that no longer serve you well? So it is my hope that people will sit with this book and ask, what have I thought about my white sister or my Black sister that no longer serves me well? Then how do we move forward from there? How do we begin to embrace thoughts and behaviors that serve us well? And so we have questions to help you navigate that, questions to help you build relationships and take action. What can we do to bridge divides? What can we do to make sure that we are amplifying my sister's voice and making sure my sister is not only included, but she feels valued and treated with respect? One of the letters, I'll end with this. One of the letters written, I believe it was Monique, who said, when I'm in the room, speak my name basically. When you're in a space, that's one act of responsibility. That when you're in a room where your voice is honored, look around and make sure your sister is there and her voice is honored too. That's one takeaway that people can do starting now.
I love
Yes.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank
This was really great. And if you haven't bought this book yet, you've got it available on Amazon.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, anywhere online you can get that book. Yeah.
Okay.
This book is everywhere.
Well, this one's mine, so you can't have this one. But dear white woman, dear Black woman, a tapestry of letters for hope and healing by Bonita Hampton Smith. Go get it today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamara. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time on From Moment to Movement.